Welcome, Cammie, to Metalating Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Ocean of Slumber, this new album where God's fear to speak, and more things related to the metal world in general. So we start by asking, how are you doing today? How is the band during the last couple of years?
I'm doing well today. We're busy coming back from the Metal Injection Festival we played last weekend, and Dauber is out on tour with Necrofire, so he's had a very busy month. But the band's been doing well. We we fight through the transition and we work as best we can to always get to that next album. So things have been going good.
Okay. Okay, so when did you start writing songs for this new album? And all the songs new, or did you rescue any compositions that were left out of previous albums, especially for the Starlight and Ash?
No, this album entirely was written entirely new. Um, Generally, we don't have songs that don't get used. On this album, it was actually kind of the first that we had two songs that didn't make it to getting on the album, so they'll kind of stay in the vault. Uh, but we're figuring out where to put them next. But the writing starts almost a year, 2 years before the albums are released or finished.
Okay, okay. So are you? I saw that Ocean of Slumber are always working in a new music. So are you always working on new music, or do you prefer to focus on it once you finish enjoy it? So how do you decide when it's time to work in a new songs and a new album?
It's kind of always ongoing. Dauber, he writes all the music, and together we kind of work through what themes and things the album will have. But it's something that's kind of always kind of happening, and then they fully come to fruition and become the songs in their entirety. I guess the closer we get to being like, okay, we're gonna for sure, put out a new album.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So many bands and musicians see each album as a child, each one special in its own way. So it's a bit of cliche to say that each new release is the band's best. But do you consider this four album is your best work to date? If so, what are the reasons that this make this your best album to date?
I do. I think with every album, as a band, Oceans of Slumber matures and evolves, and we get better at our craft. The type of musicians that we are, we're always striving to just be better and do better and outdo ourselves. Um, I think that for me, this is a contrast and a complementary contrast to Starlight and Ash, which is one of my favorite albums that we've done. And I know while it is a little bit special in our discography, I think that it fits so well into our albums feeling like true conversations and feeling like really getting to know someone. And so where God's Fear to Speak is, it's so mature, it's so well developed, it's so intricate, it's so expansive and cinematic. Like it just really nails everything that we were going for and trying to obtain in the moment. And I'm very proud of it, and I think it feels incredibly special.
Mm? Okay, okay. So lyrically, what themes do you explore on this new album? Where does the inspiration come from, and why do you choose the name of Where God's Fear to Speak?
This album is a very cinematic take on a dystopian kind of sci-fi future where it's these elements of exploring breaking away from religious ideologies and finding the strength in your own status and your own stature and kind of taking it upon yourself to rebel against a system that's just trying to use and exploit you and crying out for change. It's very reflective of a lot of the tensions and aggressions that we kind of see going around us now, and this fast, just pressing intensity of technology like over us. And when we were trying to figure out the title, Where Gods Fear to Speak, we were playing on these sort of nuances. The album combines cinematically inspiration from movies like Dune, Book of Eli, The Road, and even like Mad Max, in a way of just people being on their own on this frontier, but yet having these sort of traditional philosophies that bind them or hold them back. And so Dauber had brought up in conversation, like Where Gods Fear to Speak, as a question to help expand on the themes of the album. But it became such a great point of conversation that we decided to make it the album title.
Okay. Okay, I remember when we spoke 4 years ago for also in the Slumber Safe Title album. I remember very well, and you said the same thing about that album, about the lyrics, that you've been telling me that for 2 albums now, the band lyrics are cinematics always. So, what is the reason that the band leans towards these cinematic ideas in the lyrics? And perhaps, is there any theme that's related with these three last albums since 2020?
I think that we, as a band, we can say like that is one of the characteristics then that people will get consistently from us is our pursuit to do something cinematic. We love the marriage of the arts, and what better than movies and music. And so the vivid imagery, like the next most inspiring thing to Dauber and I is photography and is cinema. And so it's a constant that these two things sort of play off of each other all the time, and that we make music to invoke these visualizations and evoke these uh, images that you can almost picture, or these soundscapes that make you feel like you're somewhere. And so I think that that's kind of why we tend to have that characteristic and that description for our music. Um, the albums aren't necessarily related like to one another, but one thing that they are is an ongoing conversation. Like just like any intimate relationship that you would have with someone, you have deep and meaningful conversations, and you don't always talk about the same thing. So as a band, it's something we strive to do, is have this conversation with our fans and with ourselves, and each album is an expression of that.
Mhm. Okay. Starlight and Ash, hold me. Starlight and Ash was a much more introspective album. And I remember you mentioned that to me at that time when we did an interview for that album. But Where God's Fear to Speak returned much more to a musically open concept because you included more progressive stuff, a lot of more textures, more layers. So, what do you decide to return in the Ocean Slumber sound in the past? Because just the previous one, Starlight and the Ash, it was an introspective album.
Well, I think that all of our albums are very introspective. This one is deeply so as well, but we decided that we felt and we needed more aggression to convey the things that we had been feeling and the experiences we had been having. Starlight Nash is a very special album, and it will always be, but it was not well received in the metal industry, and it cost us professional relationships, and it cost us understanding that as a band we were already working so hard to get that people in the industry didn't really know what to do with it, and we couldn't really work with maintaining staying in that direction. But like anything that we do, like a band like us is very mature, and we're very vast in like how we like to express ourselves and the modalities that we can express ourselves. And one album doing something that maybe doesn't feel as familiar, like as stereotypically metal, or isn't the kind of heavy that people want, doesn't mean that's the direction that we're going, and that was going to be how all the albums sounded. Like I said, it's a conversation, and it's an intimate one that we have with ourselves and our fans, and we don't always have the same conversation every time. And so that's our albums represent that. And so the vulnerability that we shared in creating an album like that, we don't plan on doing again, because it's not an industry that appreciates it or deserves it.
Okay, okay. So how do you feel the fan reception to these albums has been so far? So how do you usually take the reviews? Do you time to read reviews? How do you take the reviews posted for this new album? How was the reception for this? Where the gods fear to speak?
I think the reception has been well. I don't really like reading the reviews or bothering with too many detailed uh, feedback on the album. Um, it's not why I put it out to get feedback from everyone. The label sort of updates me as far as like this is how it's going and I guess based on sales and what they see, they go through the reviews and everything and if they're happy, I'm happy and then I can just appreciate, that it's out there and that it means something to people, but I don't like to hear a lot of everyone's opinion on it. Like there's certain people that we sent it to before the album came out that are peers or are people who um, are kind of what you would say like trusted critics of what we do.
Mhm.
And we send it to them and really their feedback is helps the development of or kind of gives an idea like this is what it is and how we might feel about it, but I don't once it's released, I generally am not I stay away from online and what just every critic might think because there's too many nowadays and not everybody has merit to give their criticism.
Okay, okay. So now talking about the promotion for this new Weird Gods to First Speak, what kind of plans do you have for Ocean Slumber and also this last album? Perhaps you will mark more tours because I saw a lot will tours. You will play then two tours there after this. So perhaps you will embark on a first Latin tour, Asian tour. Who knows? What kind of plans in general has for Ocean Slumber and this new album?
Right now we finished up with the festival and we're kind of just waiting to see. Surprisingly, a band like us, or unsurprisingly, I guess I don't know. Uh, we don't. We're in a tricky place for sort of getting the tours that we can maintain. Financially, things are just harder than they've ever been to tour, and they're expensive, and the industry really isn't accommodating so much for a band like us. And so, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, okay. So you've been around for over 10 years because the band started in 2011. So and you have already six albums. Obviously, you have a lot. You have singles, videos, and more things related with your discography. So, like a relative young band, what inspired you to create new music and a bet on new releases in a digital age where have hundreds of bands releasing albums every weekend? I think by weekend we have 40 or 50 or 1,000 or 100 releases per weekend. That's impossible to follow. So, do you feel to have to compete with a lot of bands?
Well, I mean, I don't feel like well, we might have that many albums out. We've been around for over 10 years. Like I don't really count us as a young band, but I mean, yeah, the industry, the music in general is oversaturated. And while it's not necessarily a competition, there's just statistically no way to reach as many people as bands used to be able to reach pre-algorithm, pre streaming services, and pre-social media. And so it kind of dilutes what bands are capable of doing and reaching. And then it's like you have to pay the beast to be seen and even reach people that are interested in you. And it's very daunting and
Mm.
uh, what do you say, disheartening, and we definitely feel the pangs of that. And, honestly, after this album, I don't know that we necessarily choose to uh, go on. We have a lot of changes coming up, and it's been a fight that hasn't kind of been worth it.
Okay, okay, okay. So, since you joined the band in on the Winters album, so the band has been releasing albums every 2 years because 2016, 2018, 2020, and 22 and 24. So you have a busy schedule to release albums each 2 years. So in this sense, so is this scheduled releases album is something thinking, or perhaps it was something that came out unnatural?
It's kind of the natural cycle uh of writing, recording, and promoting an album. You have to kind of give it time to be out and get around and get saturated, get listened to, tour with it. That generally that seems to be about the window of time that uh, kind of the industry mandates for putting albums out. If you feel so inspired and you're putting quality effort into what you're doing, sure, I guess you could put out more, but I think it's a generally healthy, uh,
Mhm.
critical way to make sure you're putting quality stuff out. But Dauber writes a lot of albums and he's in a lot of different bands. He has a lot of output he's capable of, and we write very fast as a band, and so. But I think that kind of keeps us on a healthy timeline of output so that we're not, exhausting ourselves either.
Mhm. Okay, okay, I understand. I understand that. Now the band already has 6 albums in their career, and little by little, creating a list of songs to play live becomes more complicated because you have to satisfy a different epochs of the fans. Because some fans prefer the first album, others album prefers the last album, and you know that. That's completely normal around the world when a band has more than 3 albums or more than 4 albums. So how do you select a live set when right now you have 6 albums on your career, and also if some in some places some people request songs for the first album when you not sing there.
Um, it's really mostly about it comes down to a few things, and it's looking at like, okay, what are our most popular songs um, that streaming shows or the label shows, and then the like literal logistics of like, can we take that many guitars to do the songs? And so sometimes the songs get chosen because they can play them on one guitar and not have to travel with a lot of gear. But it's something as simple as that. But depending on where it is and the logistics of it, we always try and do, our top songs, and then depending on the keys and the length of time that we get to play determines the set list.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Okay, so being a band with a varied sound, how do you see the issue of labels? Fans and media always try to label bands and start playing with words like progressive, metal, rock, and always when you see a review, there is a new label appears in Ocean of Slumber. So, so how do you see describe your sound yourselves?
I know people have a very hard time like categorizing us, and
Yeah.
for good reason, it's fine. Categories and labels help people, you don't go to the library and it's just a free for all. So, I understand their utility. I think for us, like cinematic is cinematic dark metal, it's kind of where we dwell, something in between uh death metal, progressive, and black metal elements, but I think that we fell on recently of being the best descriptor of dark cinematic metal. Um, but what that means and how that goes over with people is it's kind of subjective.
Hmm, okay, okay. On the other hand, I imagine you must also mention sometimes that your sound is reminiscent of certain bands that may have inspired you, and that's normal because the reviewers are go deeply in each rip for them. So, but have you ever been told that that you sound like a certain band when you really don't?
Um, I feel like mostly when it comes to me that because I'm a woman in metal, it's like, oh, you're symphonic metal or you're um
Yeah.
well, mostly anyone calling us symphonic metal because there's a woman singing. It's like, and I sing clean, and it's like we're not symphonic metal by any means. And so that's probably the main one that kind of happens that annoys me.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you are not the symphonic metal, but I read that. I read someone said this also in the Slumber symphonic metal. So now talking about one thing that I think captured my attention for this last album, it was that you changed the label because the last album with Starlight and Ash it was with Century Media, and now this album is with Season of Mist, another great label in the metal world. So why do you decide to change the labels from Century Media and Season of Mist? Perhaps is something to do with the perhaps the contract ended with Century Media, or perhaps you decide to start a new path with Season of Mist.
I mean, it was both. After Starlight and Ash, the tensions that the US side of the label and Oceans of Slumber felt kind of reached a head, and our understanding and ideas for one another couldn't be like reconciled. Um, they didn't see the merit in us, and we didn't see the utility in them. And so we asked to be released. And Season of Mist, Dauber has had a good relationship with um, the heads of Season of Mist through his other bands and just in general. And so they were eager right away to take us on. And so it was almost immediate, just kind of a changeover. But it's quite uh, emotionally turbulent, but have found a label that appreciates us and motivates us and believes in us and supports us, and that's been really wonderful to have.
Okay, okay. So we are very close in this interview, Cami. I always consider that rock or metal music is the music of people that may age but keep the spirit young. So I listen to the last record from the classic bands, and after decades, many of them manage to keep the energy. But to be realistic, nothing lasts forever. In your opinion, so what do you think is going to happen when most classic bands that can perform at stadiums will be retired? Do you think that there are younger bands that can carry the torch in that aspect?
No, not really. I think that there's, like I said, there's so much oversaturation and there's so much that moves so quickly based on very shallow trends and very superficial, I feel like, relationships with bands and their songs that anyone who achieves a level of success to like a certain point, they will not be granted the longevity of bands that came before them. It's just the nature of the industry now. And it's like I will be very surprised to see the bands that get lifetime fans based on music that may not maintain for a person's lifetime. That sometimes a lot of the artists that people are into as younger people or as teens or young adults, they don't stay into as they get older. That it's a little bit of I feel like a fix that if you make music to appeal to young fans, is your music still going to appeal to them when they grow up? And I feel like the bands that are mega huge today, especially in rock and metal,
Mhm.
they appealed to people as adults more so than like children per se, like young adults, but they maintained like growing up with them. And I'm not sure that bands today have that mechanism about them as well. And so, and along with the industry, like I said, there are like millions of songs uploaded daily, and you're not just competing with like the ones in your genre because anybody who pays for their music to get in front of you has now outpaced you just because all you did was upload your music. That anyone that thinks that it's organic, the music that they come across, it's like that's not true. It's like everything is paid for, and it's incredibly ridiculous. And I don't know how it's sustainable for the artist in it. That it's like you're just going to end up with people who have money or labels that put money into people, and that's going to be the music that you see, whether it's like good or not, because it just you pay to play nowadays. And so I don't know who achieves in rock and metal the level of stardom of bands like Judas Priest or Metallica or Slipknot. Like I don't know, or Opeth even. I don't know who gets there anymore. Um, or not Opeth, but Gojira, and it's like I don't know who gets there anymore, and how long they maintain, but it's all a game of trends nowadays, and so I don't see it happening. I think that it's, that door kind of closes after those people leave and the industry just shrinks into uh, impulsiveness.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Ocean of Slumber always work with great labels. The first one it was Century Media, and now you are working with Season of Mist. So, how would you describe your relationship with the labels in general? So, and how is important is it to the band? So, considering that these days a lot of younger bands are choosing to self-produce and release their music independently.
I think if it's a label that just wants to jump on the bandwagon of a band's success and make money off of them, then like no, there's no reason to sign. If you have a label that's willing to like help you develop, help you find management, help you have good PR, like help you become something and like rise in the industry, make healthy connections and like network you and do all the things like that you generally do kind of have a hard time doing yourself, then yes, that's a good label. But I think a lot of labels nowadays, they're just trying to get the next popular thing so that they can put their name on it and put it out. And there's absolutely no reason that a young band needs them for that. If you're making the sales yourself, if you're getting money from social media or whatever kind of content you're putting out there and you have the popularity, it's like the labels nowadays are not going to get you more popularity than you can get yourself playing the social media game. Like that's been proven because the labels they're kind of an antiquated uh industry component and they know that and they haven't figured out how to catch up or overcome outdoing what social media does. And so, I for certain genres and certain bands, like no, you absolutely like don't need a label, but a good label will help you develop and they'll help you do things that you couldn't do for yourself. But if they're just signing you on and paying you a sign-on bonus so that they can take a part of your sales, it's like that's not doing you any favors.
Okay, okay. As you may know, Nergal from Behemoth said that the musicians today need to have a plan B because there are so many bands and it's impossible to get famous now. As you said a few seconds, there is no will be more stadiums bands because now all people dedicated more to do it themselves, no hero other bands, this kind of topic. Then Jack from Exodus said that the musical industry is dead because the digital doesn't provide any incomes to the artists or well paid artists for this, especially for the new ones, and just the old ones are with the status of the great bands. And also Danny Field from Creative Field said the same because the digital era is not for the musician, it's just for the industry. So, in your words, what's your opinion about this kind of comments of these great artists? And also, are you agree with these comments that the music industry is dead in general, and the digital era is more like the enterprises and not for the musicians?
Oh yeah, I fully agree. It's digital pennies and you don't get anything from that. The labels barely make money from that. It's not so much a mechanism of the industry as it is the companies that like have created streaming. It's absolutely detrimental to the artist and it's not sustainable. Um, no, I fully agree. Like we've had that conversation with people throughout the industry like extensively, and it's killing music and it's killing off artists who can't afford to pay a bunch of money to rise above the algorithm. Like it takes so much more money up front to get any return on anything that you're doing. And that's not, a lot of artists aren't coming from money to begin with, so it's quite detrimental.
Okay, okay. Well, Cami, we came to the sad moment of this interview. I hope you enjoyed this interview like me. Thank you for your time. For this new album is a tremendous one. Congratulations on this new album. So maybe you have something to add to Latin fans and obviously Metallium followers.
Just we have appreciated the tremendous support, and we appreciate when people reach out and they tell us, the not necessarily like just what they think of the album, but how the songs have become meaningful to them and how they've changed their lives or helped them through tough times. And that's why we make music to be there for our fans and to uplift and encourage them wherever they are. Um, yeah, just spin the new album and we hope you'll enjoy.